everybody. Welcome to this episode of Elements to Elevate by 180 Elevate. Each month, we laser focus and dig deeper into an area of life, which we truly believe is an element to uplift our perspectives and humanity. From insights to action, the path to elevate your mind, body, and soul starts here. In today's episode about embodying alchemy, a power or process that changes or transforms something into a mysterious or impressive way, our guest is Megan Krokos, Senior Vice President at Bath & Body Works with an impressive background, formerly at Estee Lauder, MAC, Clinique, Lancôme, and Jo Malone London. Welcome, Megan, and thank you for being on our show. You have an incredibly elevated background across different functions and titles. We're glad to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to connect with you.
Likewise. Take us on your journey from early career to this guru you are now that so many women look up to, and actually men and women alike, professionally and personally. Our audience would love to hear about your key learnings and takeaways in each phase of your journey.
So I have to begin my journey in childhood, actually, because I often joke, I worked in the beauty industry years and years before I was actually paid to be in the beauty industry. I can't remember a time in my life that I wasn't obsessed with beauty products, buying my first fragrance at age 9, being so inspired by my mom, my aunts, my grandmother, watching them in their skincare and hair care and exercise routines. I just loved it. My mom kept her perfume on her dresser on a beautiful vanity tray on top of a doily, and the whole thing just felt so special. From there, my next obsession was with magazines. I was obsessed with magazines, reading about how to make your own skincare masks with elements in your kitchen, ideas for hairstyles and makeup tips and tricks, along with articles on poise and posture and health and well-being and how to carry yourself. So I grew up in central Pennsylvania, and being outside and active outdoors was just a part of life. But I managed to work beauty and self-care into that rural part of life, inviting my neighborhood friends over to try the homemade oatmeal face mask I made, or to take a 2-hour-long bike ride with olive oil all throughout our hair. Some of these things worked better than others, but we all had fun all of the time. From there, I think my earliest experiences and my earliest advice would be to just lean into what you love. So when I went to college, I wasn't sure what to study if you love all things beauty. So I studied business. I went to college at a very small college in London. Absolutely loved it. This was in the 80s, in the heyday of fashion and music and beauty and fragrance and all sorts of things that I absolutely loved. And I managed to work my beauty obsession into all of these classes. And sometimes people used to joke with me, you are a business major who is taking more art classes than the art majors. But I just loved it and continue to lean into that creative aspect. So from college, I moved to New York and just got my first job behind the counter, sort of paying my own rent, but connecting with customers each and every day. And then once I got my foot in the door of corporate, I was very excited for each and every opportunity, always going above and beyond, being the first one in and the last one out and raising my hand, and honestly not realizing that some of these roles and assignments were really sort of the bottom of the ladder or even under the ladder. I was just so excited and grateful to be there that I can't remember a time in my life that I didn't love and lean into what I do. Throughout my whole career, I also balanced that with volunteering. I think doing good and volunteering is so important to mental health. And when you're helping others, it just pays in dividends that are hard to explain. So again, taking care of your mind and body and soul all together, I think is the way that, at least for me, I found in myself ways to excel and continue growing. So that's at a high level, sort of the early phases and what I did in my career.
I love the different brands that you have been a part of, that you have gained such tremendous experience in. Can you walk us through what made you pivot from one brand to another? Of course, one seems to be a European brand versus an American, and global expansion alike. Sounds like you started from what we call here in the tech world in Silicon Valley, the garage of your house as a startup, and you're this influential person. You started with homemade oatmeal masks, and now you have this executive directorship at the world-renowned brands. Some of our favorite ones for our audience: MAC, Estee Lauder, Lancome, Jo Malone, and now at Bath and Body Works. I'd love to understand, why would you go from one thing to another? What prompted that growth or risk-taking measure? And then why did you end up here at Bath and Body Works?
It's a great question. I think when I first moved to New York in the 80s, Revlon actually at that time owned a lot of department store brands, and some of which that are not even around anymore, Ultima 2, Charles of the Ritz, some of these amazing heritage brands. And I just found myself connected with these brands in department stores. And that was my first foot into the door into the corporate world. And, it was in the time of Cindy Crawford and Christy Turlington, and their slogan was "the most unforgettable women in the world were Revlon." And Revlon was a fantastic company. They gave me so many opportunities to do so many different things. I was exposed to every other department. I had a laser focus in marketing, and I ultimately started to do my MBA part-time at night in marketing, but then throughout my career moved into product development. And I took a lot of risks in my career. I took pay cuts. I took lateral moves. I ventured into things that I had no experience in, but I was always excited to learn and grow. So I spent numerous years at Revlon, and no company that I worked for was I ever unhappy with. It was usually another company kind of knocking at my door. And so, I got a call first actually from Calvin Klein when they were owned by Unilever saying, hey, we think you could be a great fit at Calvin Klein. We love your energy and your background, and come visit us here. And at that exact same time, L'Oreal slash Lancome was calling me, and Calvin was kind of quicker to the punch. And I went to Calvin. But at that time too, Calvin was going through some changes with Unilever, and I ended up only spending about a year there. And L'Oreal never stopped calling me the entire time I was at Calvin Klein, saying, please, we're interested in you. We'd love for you to come. And so I went to L'Oreal on the Lancome brand, and honestly just felt like I walked into a dream. I was working on color cosmetics at Lancome in the 90s, flying all over the world, working on makeup and color stories for Broadway shows and all sorts of incredible different things. It was just an amazing time period, and I have the utmost respect for L'Oreal as a brand. All the brands I've worked for, the utmost respect for all of these brands. And during that time, actually, when I was at Revlon still, I was married. By the time I was at Lancome, I had two back-to-back baby girls, 11 months apart. And I was traveling a lot and loved my job, but that was a little bit hard, with these two little infants at home, and I'm flying to France, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, what am I doing? My husband, who never held a baby before our first baby, I'm handing him this baby saying, I'll be back in a week. Can you help me out here? And, he's okay. So, I worked there for a few more years. And then somebody that I worked with actually at Calvin Klein was at Lauder. And she bumped into me one night and she said, Megan, honestly, you look exhausted. And I said, I am exhausted. And she said, why don't you come to Clinique? You'll have much less travel. And so 2 weeks later, I was working for Clinique, part of the Estee Lauder companies. And I switched overnight from color cosmetics to skincare. And so during those 2 weeks, I thought, shoot, I better read every book I can on skincare. And this was the time when derm brands were launching too. So Perricone and Dr. Dennis Gross and all these derm brands were launching. So it was great for me because I had tons and tons of research materials to be reading up on. So, came to Clinique, absolutely loved it. And spent a few years there. And again, within this small beauty industry of sort of friends and colleagues, I moved around within Estee Lauder from Clinique to Mac, which was unbelievably incredible and cool and everything that you would imagine it is, to La Mer and Jo Malone. And I remember when I was moving off La Mer at one point, my husband, who has then since become a pretty big product junkie like his wife, was kind of upset that, how is he going to get his products anymore? I said, don't worry, I'll still be buying, I'll still be bringing home lots and lots of products, because in product development, you do, bring a lot of submissions home. So your whole family gets to benefit. But so I did that for a number of years and loved it. I absolutely loved and have, huge respect for Estee Lauder companies. And then I got a call from somebody at Mac who had gone to Bath and Body Works, and she called me and she said, "Hey, there's this unique opening at Bath and Body Works. Are you interested?" And I said, I'm actually fine. And she said, come down and meet the people. And I thought, okay, I'll come and I'll meet the people. And when I came down and I met the people at Bath and Body Works, two things happened. One, I just felt this huge warmth from them, just this huge community and this huge warmth. And secondly, I thought to myself, I've had 19 years in the business already. And even though I worked for French companies and American companies, and I worked in color and skincare and fragrance and all sorts of different things, I always worked for the brand selling to retailers. I thought, this is an interesting opportunity to work for the brand who also is the retailer.
Yes.
So I came home that night and I said to my husband, I think I'm going to go to Bath and Body Works. And he said, I didn't even know you were looking. And I said, I really wasn't looking. And then sure enough, I went to Bath and Body Works, and that was 14 years ago. And I feel like the 14 years have flown by, and have just, loved every minute of working with Bath and Body Works as well. We, it's an amazing company, and I feel like we sell joy at the end of the day. We bring so much joy to our customers, and it's an incredible place to work and be.
And so, with each pivot you've taken, or almost like you got recruited into your next gig, what were the key learnings that you'd want? You probably embody not just alchemy in terms of different roles. You embody alchemy in terms of a mindset, going from one well-known brand. Taking yourself to the next level, almost like a risk taker, but world traveler, mom, leader, conscious mom, conscious leader. Through this whole, just tell me two key takeaways or a couple of key learnings that you'd want our audience to know as they make the professional and personal pivot or transformation themselves.
So one of the questions I do like is when people say, what would you have told your younger self? And I think, sometimes people, especially in the beginning of your career, or in the middle or anytime, I think can be so hung up in titles, or so hung up in the pace in which your friends' careers are moving. So if you feel like you're comparing yourself with other people, and whether that's friends or family or whomever, and their careers seem to be moving at a different pace, or their title is higher than your title, try not to get hung up with that, because at the end of the day, really focusing and leading yourself, focusing on your own career, I think is always going to be your best advice. And it may be a different pace, but it's also maybe the right pace for you. And also, the title is one thing, but your scope and your responsibility and your accountability and your day-to-day work, that's all of the rest of it. So, try to really focus on what you're doing every day and the value that you're adding and the creativity that you're given and the impact that you're responsible for. I mean, all of those things are really, really, really motivating. And I think to be open to change, be open to the things that look scary or that feel uncomfortable, or that you just don't know what's going to happen. I remember when I was leaving my first job, at Revlon, somebody had said to me, something to the effect of, you're better staying where you are because at least you know everything. And I thought, well, it's also so interesting that I don't know anything where I'm going. It's all new. It's all things to learn and people to meet, and different ways of looking at things. So it kind of surprised me, when this person said that. And I sort of smiled, and I thanked her for her advice, but I thought to myself, I'm listening to myself, and it may work out and it may not,
Yeah.
and it's okay if it doesn't, because again, you can change that too. None of us are sort of locked and loaded usually, so you can usually change it if you need to.
And that is it reminds me of my early 20s when I was working for top 3 global consulting companies in the world. And you don't leave those companies ever. You are usually someone who stays for a lifetime. And this was before pre-millennial era, where a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, was not the name of the game. You were loyal to the company. And I was leaving, and I'll remember the president of the company, very well known, told me, "You don't leave us. You just don't know what you're doing and what you're getting into." And there was that inner voice for me. So for our audience, listening to that inner voice and leading to eventually the inner happiness and outer gratitude is important. Risk taking is important. Obviously, calculated risk taking, I would say, and not necessarily worrying about the brand or anything, the title, as you said, the hierarchy, but do what makes you happy at the same time. And understand, where you want your career to be headed, with the inner light really shining through was important. And I'm so glad I went from the top 3 global consulting companies to a very local company that no one had ever heard of, and then it catapulted me into being head of HR at Square, working with Jack Dorsey. And who would have ever thought, if I hadn't made that pivot, that would, I would have landed my dream job. So completely echoing your sentiments, but let's step back. You mentioned something about your younger self advice. I read a recent article from Forbes talking about the head of product or someone similar at Mac who pivoted outside and launched Glossier because she wanted to do something after being, and so I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that. And I was, I've used the products. I feel like it's a great addition to the whole world of beauty. How come you decided to go the corporate route when, as a little girl, you were doing all the homemade things and you had all these brilliant ideas, but you decided to catapult yourself into corporate? Or even now, you have all the knowledge, you have literally traveled the world, you have everything under your belt in terms of being this one-stop shop person that knows everything about everything in beauty and skincare. What is the reason you're not starting your own company?
Well, it's interesting. I grew up in a big family. I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and there was always a lot of people around. And my mom, is a big animal lover, so there was always just various rescue animals, all inside and outside our house around. So I feel like just that sense of being with a lot of people, I always liked. I always liked being part of a team and part of something. I also, very much liked sort of structure and organization, and a little bit of, stability,
Sure.
safety and stability. So kind of feeling like, I'm out of school, I'm on my own, I have this rent, I have all of my own expenses. I want to be able to, budget myself and buy the things I want for myself. So I think in the very beginning, I absolutely wanted some stability. I wanted to make sure that I had, income coming in and benefits, health benefits, making sure that all those things were covered. And quite frankly, I loved my coworkers. I'm still best friends with all of my coworkers, and actually best friends with the middle school, friend who did the oatmeal masks with me and all the hair oil. I'm still really close with her too. But I think that I just liked the community of a company, and I also liked honestly, all the amazing perks that came with it, whether it was the travel, and things like when I worked at Estee Lauder, I remember it was when the artist Christo did the gates over Central Park, and my office faced that. on the 45th floor. And I remember thinking, what kind of life do I lead that I have this view, that I have this view of this incredible art installation that went in over, iconic Central Park. And we were so lucky because it ended up hitting 2 seasons, fall and winter. So we saw it with and without snow. And I just remember thinking, I'm so fortunate that, I've had this career where people have given me chances and allowed me to be part of something. So I think for me, it was just a combination of the community, and the security.
Yeah, and
Doesn't
you're
mean it
coming.
wouldn't happen one day, but you never know.
You never know, and if any brand, I would be the first person to try that if you were to ever start your own. But you've come from a place of gratitude
Yes.
that you owe towards your success, and that's a beautiful way to say it. Economist published a article today, and I want to read something from that article. It said about the beauty industry and how the millennials, what they are focusing on nowadays to be the standards of beauty. You have beautiful insights. I'd love to hear your insights about it.
Sure.
The artificial beauty of retouched images has become so coveted that in case of life imitating art, there are celebrities who now have plastic surgery that mimic photo editing tropes. Botox injections in the forehead. What celebs do eventually trickles down to everyone else. So, if
Well,
you,
I'll start with, oh, sorry, go ahead.
the question I have, you could definitely
Yes.
give your insights. The question I have is if you could speak your mind without judgments or fear of retaliation, and think about what this article is talking about with the segments of beauty and skincare industry. I'd love to have that 1 minute of complete freedom of speech or thought process from you on what you think.
So thank you. And I have to say, firstly, judgment-free zone for anybody that wants to do anything that makes them feel better. I would never pass judgment if somebody wants to do the Botox or the fillers or all the other things. I'm a huge fan of facials. I'm a huge fan of microdermabrasion and chemical peels. I stay out of the sun. I try to be more preventative and sort of low tech maintenance, but judgment free zone for anybody that wants to do anything that they want to do. I think my glimmer of hope, and you can probably tell I'm a glass half full person, is that with all that, I feel like we're seeing more of the tail end of that. Yes, there are filters, and yes, there is editing, and yes, all that's going on. But there is also a huge movement that is the opposite of that, of things that are without filters, and things that are without
Absolutely.
retouching, and things that are showing real beauty, and letting maybe previously perceived flaws shine through. And so we see that just as much too. And the big companies are embracing it and the small companies are embracing it. And I have, you know, the utmost hope and support of this next generation Gen Z, coming up, because I feel like they're growing up with that as the forefront. And so I'm hoping that we can get to a point where people are feeling good inside and out, taking care of their mind, body, and soul, and feeling good. But if there's something that someone wants to do that makes them feel better, they need to have the freedom to do that too.
And absolutely the tools too, right? Like why limit the tools, whether it's skincare, beauty, digital technology, they are a means to be an alchemist for personal transformation. There's the negatives to everything, and it is really up to us to shine out the positivity out of that. With that said, is there anything you would want to leave our audience with that we did not cover today?
Well, I think one of my favorite, sort of quotes or phrases or something is, when opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. I think throughout my whole career, I didn't wait for things to fall in my lap. I raised my hand. I let people knew what I was interested in. I took the good assignments and I took the assignments that nobody else wanted. I remember being in a room and everybody leaving and being like, oh my God, how am I stuck with this? But at the same time, everything helped you learn and grow. And if you're waiting and waiting for things to happen to you, you might be waiting a long time. To just own it, take charge of your career, take charge of your happiness, take charge of your life, take charge of things that that are going to help you and make you feel good and help others. So when opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. I think that's one of my favorite quotes.
Absolutely. Everyone has their own definition of success, and each one follows a different path in life to get there. Your definition is to be a true alchemist. Thank you, Megan, for being on our show today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, Nikki, that was a great segment with Megan. I really enjoyed it. What was your favorite takeaway from it?
She's just done so much in life through so many different global brands, Estee Lauder, Lancome, MAC, Clinique, you name it, she's been there. And my question for her, which was an interesting answer, was, going through these amazing transformations and pivots of different corporate brands you've worked with, why did you end up at Bath & Body Works? And her answer to that was, which is also the advice she'll give to her younger self, don't worry about hierarchies, don't worry about titles, brands. Worry about what you want to do, what brings you inner happiness, transforms it into outer gratitude, and you will be a much more holistic person that way. And so I love that advice to younger self or professionals alike, experienced professionals alike, is let's not worry about the titles, hierarchy, or where we are in life, but focus on what we do best and what we want to do, and success will come of it in of itself to us. What about you? What was your favorite part of the segment?
Well, my takeaway from her was I think she is very integrated in her mind, body, and soul. You could tell she has worked a lot on herself, and she truly listens to her inner voice. When she said, lean into your passions, that was a huge aha moment for sure. And very much in tune with the emotions of gratitude, the emotions of giving back, and staying in that high frequency constantly, because there's no way she could have achieved what she had without being in those emotions every single morning when she wakes up. So that was very insightful.
And, our favorite quote from the segment is, if opportunity does not come knocking on your door, build the door. So we'd love to leave you with that one quote to think about.
Powerful.
And now we have a masterclass on From Nowhere to Now Here story of the founder of .Connect, Dominique Farnan, on her journey of how she went from corporate burnout to a conscious connector. .Connect comprises a team of top-notch talent advisors who help build businesses with cultures that reflect their values. Welcome, Dominique.
Hello, everyone out there. My name is Dom Farnan. I am a humble student of the world, a writer, a deep thinker, an Enneagram 1, which is a reformer, a lover of the ocean, a mother, a conscious connector, and the founder and CEO of .Connect, a global talent advisory. I am here to tell you the story of how I went from corporate burnout and feeling like I was nowhere to being a conscious connector and really being now here. I'm a firm believer that if you change your thoughts, you will change your life. And I know because that's happened to me. So it's been about a little over a year since I started working with my coach, Angie Wisdom, and I'm feeling emotional. And I can't tell you how good that feels to actually feel feelings. I decided to share my path to healing because it's a long story and it's an important one and I'm compelled to share it with you all. It was the early days of the pandemic in about March of 2020 when the world was in panic mode and I fell into a really deep depression. Some days I don't even know how I scrape myself out of bed to put on a fake smile and get through the Zoom calls that still lingered on my calendar. I'm sure I wasn't the only person feeling helpless or like they had lost their identity overnight. My company was hanging on by a thread, and we had a handful of clients that were still engaging to work with us. But ultimately, everyone had to take a pay cut. I had to go through my life savings to keep my small team paid, which I very gladly did, while also trying to self-soothe and overconsume alcohol, amongst other things, and really just getting into some dark places. As I came to know of Angie through social media, I was following this guy, Kevin Sturdivant, who I've never met. And one thing that stood out to me in the middle of the pandemic and the chaos that was happening around the world was just Kevin's overall optimism and positivity. And it was really inspiring. He often tagged Angie in his meetings at highlighting their weekly sessions. And so at the end of May 2020, I felt compelled to reach out to her and see how she might be able to help me. I knew I wasn't looking for a therapist. I wanted a coach, but I wanted someone who could balance personal life coaching as well as business coaching. And that's Angie. In our first few sessions, I was coming in hot and I was very cerebral. I had a lot on my agenda that I wanted to cover with her and a lot of thoughts in my mind. But she would probably tell you that most of it was surface level. I didn't really want to go into deeper levels of being. I wasn't ready to heal or confront any of the things that were likely holding me back. I remember being very upfront and matter of fact about my past and my present. And I think I literally said to her, my marriage is a mess right now, but that's not my priority. My priority is my business. So let's start with that and we'll fix my messed up marriage later. And when I think back to that statement, I realized just how disconnected I was from my heart. At the same time, I also knew that I was longing for a whole life. And that was also one of the first things I said to her when she asked what my intentions were to working with a coach. I wanted a whole fulfilling life in all aspects of my life, not just in my business and not just having a success financially outwardly. I wanted happiness in my marriage, my friendships, my motherhood, my family relationships. And at the time, it really seemed impossible. How could I be happy when I had every single thing I ever desired and wanted in my life, and I still wasn't happy? So that's when the work really began. She believed that the damage in her mind and her heart was permanent until she met wisdom, who taught her that no pain or wound is eternal and that all can be healed and that love can grow even in the toughest parts of her being. So that's by Young Pueblo, one of my favorite authors. So last year I had a lot of time on my hands in between applying for in-house recruiting leadership roles in the event that all of our clients decided to pull their budgets, which thankfully they didn't. Trying to keep my team's morale high along with my own morale and mental well-being, trying not to worry about if we would lose our house since I was the breadwinner. But your mind plays tricks on you, right? When you're in panic mode and things are going crazy. I decided amidst all of that, I would apply for an alt MBA. And I figured that would be a positive distraction and something for me to really sink my teeth into, to forget all of the noise around me. And as luck would have it, I started my alt MBA in July of 2020, just after my work started with Angie. And the alt MBA is an intense workshop that combines deep EQ work with business fundamentals and activities. So there's students all over the world that connect on Slack and other learning platforms. And there's a lot of writing, reflection, reading of other people's writing, commenting on their work, and learning from your peers. And this experience for me really couldn't have come at a better time, because upon reflection, it was part of my divine plan. I think that experience really allowed me to reconnect with a passion of mine, which is writing. So when I first started working with Angie, I could feel a lot of resistance, and I'm just not sure that I even believed that there was things that I needed to heal or that my perspectives could be changed because I was an adult. I remember in one of my earlier sessions, I brushed over the fact that I had what I would consider a hard heart. And I often felt like it was a lump of coal in my chest and there just wasn't any feeling coming out of it. And I know it sounds dramatic, but that's honestly the only way I could describe it. I had a hard heart for 20 years, and I just began to think that there was nothing that would soften it. And Angie and I talked a lot about my values in our first few sessions, and it was no surprise to me that my stubborn mindset wouldn't rate any of the values on the sheet a 5 out of 5, not even my family or my health. So in June of 2020, my top 3 values were financial freedom and abundance, challenge, and mental stimulation. Essentially, I was motivated by working hard in challenging situations, likely all the time, to make money. And that was it. And it was awful. So my egoic mind would make excuses for myself every weekend when I would remain glued to my computer instead of spending time with my son or my partner. And I would tell myself, well, I have to work because I'm the CEO and I pay the bills. And if I don't work, then nothing will get done. And all this stuff coming in my head. And this led me to physically just letting myself go, drinking all the time, every night, not exercising, not prioritizing sleep. Even if I could get sleep, it was anxiety ridden because I wasn't living in the present moment. And I was stressed out about fear of something that hadn't happened or reliving something that had happened. It was really ugly. And so for me, the most basic thing I could do was take care of my body, because not prioritizing my health and my wellness made me feel very self-conscious. But still, my egoic mind was relentless and self-care just wasn't a priority until it was. So I committed to Angie. My first step would be, I'll move my body in some way every day. And it was just as simple as that. It was no big plan, no big like workout and go to the gym and all this. It was just go outside for a walk your dogs and see how you feel and see how that feels for you every day. And then it evolved into finding a personal trainer a few times a week and then really just getting back on track with my health as a priority. So my advice to you is that sometimes changing routines or starting or restarting practices that can seem scary when you feel all out of sorts is just start small and pick one thing and don't make a big deal out of it, and then just do it. And don't let your ego decide for you what's best for you. So I finished my alt MBA in August, and then I felt so inspired by the community and the friendships that I had formed with people all over the world that I've never met. I started writing again a lot. Angie bought me a journal, and I started spending a few minutes each morning journaling and just jotting down my thoughts, my intentions, my gratitudes for the day. And this then became part of my morning practice. And initially, I felt guilty spending time writing in the morning. I felt like I didn't deserve that peace and quiet and that there were so many other things I should be doing. Yet when I didn't take the time for myself in the morning, my whole day felt out of whack and I felt very reactive to everything that happened to me. So in October, I joined another mastermind and I met this amazing woman, Lindsay. And Lindsay is an entrepreneur like me and a mother and a partner. And she often shared on her social her morning rituals, which she called the dark hour. And her commitment to her practice was just so inspiring. She always shared these amazing books that she was reading to support her own inner healing work. And so began the next phase of my journey, which was really healing myself from the inside out. The beauty of life is that every day is a new day and an opportunity to start fresh and wash away what you might have been dealing with yesterday. Every day, if you're lucky enough to wake up, you have a choice and you decide how you want to show up. You can choose to be angry or you can choose to be happy. And at certain times, it's not always easy to choose not to be sad, especially if you're dealing with grief or other issues. But my point is, if you're here right now and you're watching this, you have a fresh day and you can come with a new, fresh perspective. So be present and be grateful. My fresh perspective on 2020 was that it wasn't the year that I had planned in my head. In my head, it was going to be a massively successful year for my company, myself. And while I was initially shocked and depressed about it not going the way I had planned, It's taken a lot of emotional labor and work, but I've reframed my outlook. And 2020 was really the year that I needed to have because it forced me to slow down and it forced me to stay home. Literally, I could not travel to see clients or anything. And it forced me to be present in my life with my son, with my family, with my friends and my team. It forced me to be a mother, which was not something that I was so used to doing, even though my son was 6 years old. I had always been the breadwinner, and that was my persona. So putting the mother hat on was definitely something that was a challenge for me. It felt weird and awkward because I was also a workaholic. So it just forced me to ask more questions and listen with intention. And it was not the year I had planned in my head, but it was really the year that I needed for the last 10 years. It's the shift and the reset that I was longing for. And while there was a lot of pain and devastation happening, and I do not discount that, there was still so many beautiful people in the world. And I experienced that through meeting Angie and then also meeting Lindsay, as well as going through Alt MBA. There were still so many things that brought me joy, and none of them were actually things. All of them were experiences. So 2020 for me was really the year that took me from nowhere to being now here in the present moment. So again, in January 2021, Angie asked me to revisit my values. And this time the exercise was much easier. And there were so many fives on my list. It felt like a totally different list. And my values really evolved to peace and tranquility, creativity, and time freedom. And the choices that I make now in my life and in business are all anchored in those values. And I really seek alignment in people, projects, and problems I solve above all with people that match those values. Hopefully my story inspired you to get clear on your values or get clear on doing some healing work, or maybe inspired you to write again or carve out an hour for yourself in the morning or afternoon or whatever time you can carve out for you to honor yourself first and reconnect with who you are inside, because I know that that's what I've been doing for the last year, and it feels so amazing to, reconnect with my inner being. So in reverence, I want to tell you guys all, as I wrap up, I encourage you to do your work, do your deep inner healing work and heal yourself from the inside out. It's really a journey that only you can be on, and no one else can do the work for you. No one else can heal your trauma. But when you choose to do this for yourself, you're also doing it for everybody because it has ripple effects. You're choosing to do the work so you can live a life on a higher frequency and no longer carry the heaviness of life lessons in your body. So you can live your values and feel peace and tranquility from the depths of your soul to your being. So I hope you feel inspired. And if you already do your inner work, keep going. If you haven't started yet, maybe now is your inspo to start. In reverence, gratitude. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you for joining us today and elevating yourself. Charity should begin at home, but should not stay there. At 180 Elevate, it is our honor to support local and global philanthropies which make an impact on the lives of our beautiful children and the world in of itself.
What would this world look like if we all felt cared for? Let's co-create that new paradigm. If you would like to consider joining our philanthropic mission, please consider donating at 180elevate.com. And next is just a glimpse into one of the many philanthropies our organization supports.
I just fell in love. I said, this school is doing exactly what I'm wishing that the school I'm working at right now is doing. And I thought, I gotta be here.
Environmental Charter Schools is a growing network of public charter schools serving South Los Angeles.
I started Environmental Charter Schools because I wanted to create a place that was going to be fun to come to work every day.
Oh, okay, this is what happens at the school. I wanted to be part of it right away. A place that you're happy to work at, you're doing what you love, and then you have a supporting staff.
Teachers here are committed and they're fun.
They take risks, they're challenging themselves.
We ask our teachers to work incredibly hard. We ask them to collaborate with one another. We are an interdisciplinary school.
We definitely make the time to come together and collaborate and share ideas.
Everyone's just working together to strive for the same mission, to meet the same goal, which is to make our community better.
The walls between the classroom and the community are just non-existent here. I feel like we're trying to change the way education looks.
We support our students to get into a four-year university.
Many of them are first in their families to go to college.
Camping is something that I've never really done. Last year in the spring, I went with our 8th grade girls to Channel Island, like actually sleeping in tents, hiking.
When they're away and they're in the wilderness, they don't have video games, they don't have cell phones. You know, it's back to basics out there.
Environmental Charter High School doesn't have a school garden. The whole school is growing fruit, vegetables, native plants.
We have a river on campus and there's fish in it.
From the moment students walk onto campus, they see an environment that mirrors how much we value them.
They know that when they're not here, we're going to miss them.
I think what makes us special is the level of respect that we have for our students and as students have for adults here on campus.
They get a lot of love here.
I love these kids. You know, I wouldn't be here if I didn't. I love these kids.
1, 2, 3. If you're down to create new models and implement them and completely fail and then try again, this is the place.
You need to have a space where you can grow and take risks as a grown-up.
You feel like you're becoming a better professional, a better teacher, and that's the goal.
I really feel like I found my perfect job.
But it's not until you step foot on our campus that you really fully understand what's happening here.
It's hard to explain.
I can't even describe it. You have to see it.